Hello, all you high-performing continuous learners out there. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Golf Guru Show. I'm your host, Jason Sutton, and I am the Guru. It is my mission to unpack and tease out the habits, life lessons, secrets to success from some of the best in the teaching and coaching world, as well as to discuss some of the technical teaching and coaching ideas that you can apply to your instruction immediately to help you achieve better results from your students and to achieve your goals in life. I hope that you find the information on this show applicable to all occupations and fields of study. Massive gratitude to all the outstanding guests that have been on the show thus far and their willingness to share their knowledge and expertise. And thank you so much for listening, sharing, and supporting the podcast. On this episode, I sit down with one of the most underrated golf instructors in the country, my good friend Kevin Britt. You can reach out to Kevin on Twitter and Instagram at Kevin Britt Golf. Kevin and I met several years ago when he attended one of my Guru workshops, and we have become great friends ever since. He is one of the most modest people that I've ever met and would never brag about all his accomplishments, which is why I've been bugging him for months to come on the show and tell his story and share some insight, because this guy really knows his stuff, and I'm really excited to share this conversation with you. A little bit about Kevin. Kevin is the Director of Instruction at the Country Club of Spartanburg in Spartanburg, South Carolina. He is was the longtime junior coach of former number one in the world, Dustin Johnson, and Kevin now coaches PGA Tour player William McGirt. Kevin has coached well over 100 juniors that went on to play college golf, including now LPGA Tour player Lauren Stevenson, with countless outstanding girl junior golfers that he's coached. So this guy trains champions and really trains kids to play at the highest level. He was the winner of the 2016 Junior Golf Leader Award for our Carolinas PGA section. And in this conversation, we dive into a variety of topics and some great stories. But a couple highlights were the key indicators of greatness that he saw in a young Dustin Johnson that he shares with the audience, and also some great stories about DJ that I think you're really going to enjoy. Also, the importance of building relationships and trust with your students and how he accomplishes that. What it's like to transition to teaching on tour and what he learned from life on the tour and on the lesson tee working with Will McGirt, and much, much more, with some input from a few of our friends that were sitting in on the interview as we recorded this show from my hotel room at the Carolinas Fall PGA Teaching Summit. So we've got some onlookers in a gallery that chime in here at the end. So you don't want to miss that. So hang in there for the entire interview. Kevin has accomplished so much and continues to grow junior golf at his club and do such a great job with his players. So I'm very excited to share with all of you this great conversation with my good friend, Kevin Britt. All right, KB, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Goop.
Thanks so much for coming on. Such a surprise, right? We're here at the CPGA Teaching Summit.
Been in town all of 5 minutes.
Yeah, getting rocked on the mic early. So no, I appreciate you coming through, man. We've been trying to do this for a long time, and I am excited to share your story and have some fun and have a few laughs. It's gonna be awesome.
It's a pleasure, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been friends for several years now. I'm trying to think of when we met. Do you remember that story?
No, probably the first time, probably an Aimpoint conference, or probably at your, kind of got to know you a little bit at one of your teaching workshops I went to.
Yeah, I think it may have been one of the Guru workshops.
Yeah, I think so.
But I think, you're one of the best coaches in the country, and you're so humble and don't want to tell people about it. And so it's up to me as your personal marketing agent to get you out to the world and tell everybody how good you are. So I appreciate you doing this, because I know you're always not comfortable talking about yourself, but
Yeah.
I think it's, in my opinion, guys like you, if you do great work for so long, then your peers will start to market you. And I think that's what's happened. When I met you, I was like, man, this guy's unbelievable. You're doing great work. So I'm excited to share your story and get you out there. So I appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, you got it. So where did you grow up? Talk to us a little bit about your childhood and kind of take us back to the beginning.
Okay. Grew up in Southwest Florida, a small town at the time, Cape Coral, right outside Fort Myers. Just grew up and played just kind of all the sports growing up, football, baseball, basketball. In high school I played football and baseball, and really never played golf at any point until I was about 18 or 19. Got a job at a golf course part-time, and my first year of college was at Edison Community College in Fort Myers, and just got a part-time job at a country club, and I was really, really bad, but I enjoyed playing. I was a good athlete, pretty good at football and baseball, and I think there's a pretty easy correlation to transfer baseball to golf.
Sure.
A lot of the similar movements, and so I felt like, when I learned, it was fairly easy, just being a pretty good athlete, to pick it up, even though I didn't really know what I was doing or have good coaching at the time. But just enjoyed the game and being around it, and enjoyed working at the country club. I worked at the Forest Country Club in Fort Myers, and there's a really nice private club down there that we had some really good pros, and talked to them, and never really considered being in the golf business at the time, but it definitely led to me being in the golf business.
So that was your first introduction to golf in general? Yeah. I mean, you didn't play much at all, and then just started picking it up. So how did that happen?
Well, just when I got a job at the golf course, I just started playing a good bit, and I had and when I played, I mean, I had a really good time. I mean, I always just had a fun time. But my first day on the job, I worked when I worked at the Forest Country Club. They asked me to go pick the range, and we had this 3-wheeled moon buggy that we picked the range with, and I picked the range, and I was holding a big bucket of balls up, and I happened to drop the whole thing, and my tire ran over, and I flipped the range buggy over on its side, and of course 400 balls went all over the place, and so that was my first day in the golf career.
You thought you were getting fired?
Yeah, it was bad. So, but it was kind of funny, man, looking back at it. But I had a good time, and but anyway, just started playing a lot and being around the pros there and around the guys that played and the members, and it just felt right, and so I started playing. My dad played some, and I started playing with my dad, and within a year or so, I could shoot in the high 70s or so. So it was kind of fun. Picked it up pretty quick. Yeah, it was good times.
So did you finish college there, and then how did that lead you to getting into the business? Yeah,
so I worked there for a while. I actually before I did that, I coached high school football for a year. So when I came out of college, I stayed at home at Edison and coached high school football at the school where I played football at Bishop Verot. So I was a high school coach. And then after that, I got a job at the golf course and just kind of got into that. And I ended up going to Tallahassee, up to Florida State, and just continued playing golf up there. So
you played for Florida State, or
no,
you just went and finished?
Yeah, one of my roommates was a walk-on, so he played on the golf team, and he was a really good player. And his name's Alan Deck. He's still a golf professional. And then I had another roommate, Darren Fedorchak, that was a really good player. And so we used to play a lot. We'd play every weekend and after school some days. So I started playing a bunch of golf up in Tallahassee at the university course there.
Did you learn or kind of take anything from your college coaching in football that you apply now to your golf coaching? Is there anything that you learned back you can think about, maybe some stories? Yeah,
I mean, growing up, I always thought I'd be a college football coach or a high school football coach in particular, and one of those. But just the coaching aspect of it, I think, is what led me into coaching golf. When I got in the golf business, I worked as kind of a typical assistant professional job, checking in people and folding sweaters and that kind of thing.
Sure.
I knew that wasn't my deal, and I loved the times when I could go out and teach lessons and work. So I knew that the coaching the coaching end of it was where I really wanted to end up, because that's what I always wanted to do.
So where was your first? What was your first induction into the golf industry? What was your first job as an assistant?
Yeah, after Florida State, I moved to Hilton Head, got a job at Palmetto Dunes Resort. So I worked at Palmetto Dunes for that company for almost about 5 years. After I was there about a year, I went from kind of a cart attendant to assistant professional. So when we moved in, we had about once a week, we moved in to a rotation where we became teacher of the day for the resort. So we got all the resort lessons, and we helped out with all the golf schools there at the resort, and also did some private lessons there.
What did those lessons look like?
It was ugly. Yeah, it was ugly. It was a great place to start because being at a resort, we had people from Michigan and Ohio and other places, and if I messed them up, they'd go back and they didn't know who I was. So it's I think it was a great place to learn. We had some good teachers there and some really good golf professionals there at Palmetto Dunes, and I learned a lot from them. But it was a good place to kind of experiment and learn how to teach a little bit, because you could really, I think everybody, when they first start teaching, they'd like to give that time back, but
yeah, everybody says that.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
We don't ever start out.
I was always a good
awesome
coach, but I wasn't a very good teacher at the time. So
yeah, that's good. So take us through the next step. Is that when you moved to Columbia after that, or is that?
Yeah, well, so I was at Palmetto Dunes, and we opened a course in Charleston. So we opened that course, and there was an opportunity to be first assistant there at Coosaw Creek in North Charleston. So I went there, and we had it was a brand new course, and I love teaching. So when I left Palmetto Dunes, I wasn't in the teaching rotation anymore, and with nobody really living there yet, other than just a few families, there wasn't that many people to teach. So I'd still kind of trek back to Hilton Head to teach a little bit and get back on that rotation. But we had it was a good place. I mean, it was a new course at the time, and there was a lot of excitement, and it's also where I happened to meet my wife. She came in for an interview there, so I met her there as well. But she was a student at the College of Charleston at the time. But but in Charleston, it was a great place. I really loved Charleston. Like, the city was great, and the golf courses were great and all that. And but I just didn't have the opportunity to teach there at Coosaw that much. There just wasn't that many people living there. And we had a part-time girl that worked for us there that was from Columbia, and she took lessons from a gentleman in Columbia, Jimmy Kusa. And she said that Jimmy was looking for someone to run his driving range and to teach there at his place, and that would I be interested in talking to Jimmy, and I did. I went up for an interview, and anyway, that's what got me to Columbia.
So keep going. Take us through your career a little bit,
right,
and to how you got to where you are now.
So I always had a passion to work with kids. I got to Columbia and started a big junior program there. And I had some of my friends help me and some of the other pros. And anyway, we got it up to a pretty big number of kids. We had, I think, one summer camp, we had about 65 kids. But it was a Weed Hill driving range in Irmo. And I think the biggest thing at Weed Hill, Jimmy was always a really good mentor for me. And so he taught me a lot. And but what we created with our junior program there was a culture. And these kids, we got a group of kids that love playing golf together. So out of this first kind of bunch of kids that we had quite a few of them become really good players, tournament champions, college golfers, and even, one of them's on the tour now, Dustin. So it was a unique situation. Yeah,
so not many people know, except for guys on the inner circle, like the guys in this room, that you were former world number one Dustin Johnson's coach up to really Q school, right? So
right.
That had to be awesome. So tell us a little bit about how you met Dustin, and then some of the early days of, because I know you've got some great stories. We've talked about it. Anything you can share would be great. But I think it'd be interesting to kind of talk about the qualities or some of the things that you saw in him that would say, hey, this kid maybe could be really good, or maybe could be a tour player, a future tour player, and I think it would be interesting to kind of discuss that.
Yeah. So Dustin I think he was a pretty unique kid. His dad was head golf professional at Mid-Carolina Club down in Prosperity when I got to know Dustin and his dad, Scott. And Scott and I got to be friends, and Dustin used to hang around the range. He would come around a good bit, but his dad ended up losing his job at Mid-Carolina, so he came to work with me part-time at Weed Hill and helped me teach my classes. I was teaching University of South Carolina golf classes and, all our golf academy stuff. And anyway, Dustin started hanging around the range every day, so I started helping Dustin pretty much, I don't know, several times a week. He'd just say, hey, you have a minute to take a look at this or take a look at that, and Jimmy would also help him from time to time. And
how old was he at this point?
Dustin was probably about 12 years old. Yeah. I think around 6th or 7th grade, somewhere in there.
Right.
And
was he playing other sports, or was he?
Yeah, he grew up playing basketball and some baseball and stuff like that. So he was a good athlete. He played all kinds of stuff. But he was a kid that probably lacked a little bit of guidance from time to time. He was kind of a free spirit a little bit, and I don't know. He's one of those kids that he had a vision. Like, he would always talk about playing on the tour, but you just thought he was a silly kid, like talking about stuff that maybe wouldn't come true. But looking back at it, he knew exactly what he wanted, and kind of he had a plan, and he was obviously a really talented kid. We play a lot of golf together, and I'd outdrive Dustin until he was about 14, and because I used to hit it pretty long when I was younger, and when Dustin got to be about 14, he was hitting it well over 300 yards. I mean, he would absolutely pound the ball.
What were some of the indicators that you saw in him early on? Now it's easy to look back now, right? Because he's obviously a world-class player, but it's always interesting. We're looking at kids, and you teach kids every day like we do. What are some of those moments that you said, "Oh wow, that's special," or "That's different than any other kid that I taught"? Well,
I mean, there were some other kids almost as good as him. Matthew Bryant was another kid that I worked with that actually, even until a couple of years ago, had PGA Latino status, PGA Tour Latino status, and Matthew was a really talented guy. And I mean, there wasn't that big a gap between the two. And I mean, they both could hit it long and far. But Dustin had something about him. I mean, he knew what he wanted to do long term. I mean, and he seemed to put all the pieces together that he needed to help him get there. And the things he would ask, he was really coachable all the time. And he called me Britt Dog, and he'd say, Britt Dog, you got a minute to take a look? And I'd work with him for 5 minutes, and then he'd say, "Oh, I'll see you tomorrow." And he'd show me tomorrow. He'd be like, "You got a minute?" And he, whatever changes that he was supposed to make that day, he would fix it. And the next day he would come out, and we'd move on to something else because he could do it. And he had one of those deals. It was a cool place because a lot of kids there were really good. We had boys and girls there that were really good, and I think that environment's
got to be so important.
Was a big deal, yeah. And I think that's something that's missing at so many places, is that culture and that environment. And we had that at Weed Hill. We had a group of kids that played really good golf. When Dustin was a senior, they had a whole bunch of kids on that team at Dutch Fork High School that all played college golf. And they all fed off each other. They all pushed each other. They all practiced together. And really, they all got better together. They had a whole bunch of them on there. So
yeah, I want to definitely come back to that environment piece that you're creating at your place now. But we can't leave DJ without a few stories. I mean, you've got to tell, because I mean, it's been cool playing. My son's played in the DJ the last few years, and we had some cool moments with DJ having a drink or so, and listening to. I mean, it's great to be able to pick the brain of world number one, and I love the story that you've told me, and then I heard it straight from him about the private jet. Can you share that one?
Yeah, sure. So I was teaching this guy, Bill Kennedy. Bill's a lefty and a really cool guy, older fella. And Bill's wife used to come out and just pull up a seat and watch Bill get his lessons. And so Bill was out one day, and his wife, Miss Kennedy, was a teacher at the at the middle school where Dustin went to middle school. I think this was in about 7th or 8th grade. I think it was 8th grade. And she was a geography teacher. And she said, Kevin, that crazy student of yours, that Dustin Johnson, you won't believe what he said in my class today. I'm like, yeah, what's that, Miss Kennedy? She said, well, Dustin, we were talking about geography. He says, well, Miss Kennedy, I don't need to know where that is because when I'm on tour, I'll get my pilot to fly my private jet wherever I need to go. And so that's what I'm talking about with the vision that he had.
Right.
And he would always talk about playing in the Masters and, when I'm in the Masters, this and that. And, so he always knew, but, I didn't know.
Yeah.
How do you know?
You don't know, yeah. But I thought it was cool. I mean, I've asked you these questions before, but the certainty that he had, there was never a point where he said, if, it was when.
No, yeah, it was
right.
When.
So that's a great lesson that I always share. I share that story with a lot of my kids that I'm coaching. It's like if you want to go after something, you got to really believe it, right, internally.
Yeah, and you got to be willing to believe it, and you have to be willing to do what it takes to get there.
That's right.
And that's what Dustin did. I mean, Dustin's a lot smarter than people give him credit for.
I believe that too.
Yeah, he's pretty sharp.
Any other funny stories that come to mind that before we move on to?
I mean, there's just bunches of stuff, but I mean, bottom line, he's just a really good guy. People have no idea how good he is to his family, to his mom and dad and his sister, and he's got a huge heart and he's a really good guy. I mean, people see all the other stuff out there, but he's a really good guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's taken some of my kids that I've taught before, and we've gone down and played golf with him, and he helps them out, and he's helped people out financially that people have no idea what he's doing. And he's just a really good guy.
Were there any tournaments, like junior tournaments back in the day that sort of stand out in your mind where you're like, okay, this kid could be something special? I think you mentioned one, but I don't know if you have any. Yeah, if it's the same one or you have any in mind.
Yeah, we were at the state championship, so I went and watched Dustin play. I taught several of the kids on that high school team that year at Dutch Fork, and so I was kind of skipping around watching the different ones. So I watched Dustin play a few holes, and I went and watched Matthew and some of the other guys, and so Dustin gets done playing, and he's like, "Hey, Britt dog, man," I said, "Well, how'd you do, D?" He says, "Man, pretty good, man. I had 7 birdies and an eagle." I'm like, God, that's awesome, dude. What'd you shoot? He's like, 73. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what happened to all the other holes, man? Like, and he's like, what? Like, he literally never talked about the bad stuff, never talked about the bad holes. He always focused on the positives. And anytime he'd play golf, he would absolutely say, that's okay. I'll just do better on the next hole. And I mean, his attitude as a kid was just unbelievably great.
Do you think that was something that was innate, or is it something that he learned through your coaching or just being around other kids? I mean, that's a very interesting quality because most kids aren't like that.
Yeah, I think it had a lot to do with his dad. I mean, his dad Scott is a really good player and a good professional, and I don't think Scott gets enough credit for Dustin's development. Scott had. Like when I started teaching Dustin when he was around 12, I mean, he was already really good, and his dad had a lot to do with that.
I don't think you get enough credit for not fixing his bowed left wrist at the top.
I used to try. Yeah, I've been asked that quite a few times. We used to actually try. When he takes a practice swing, he doesn't do that at all, and then when he hits it, he obviously does. But he used to hit the ball so good. It's like,
Yeah, it's like why would function over form, right?
Yeah.
I mean, why would you ever mess with that?
Like if you saw the kid sitting there hitting, one 5-iron after another on a rope, we had these little white 4x4 poles going up the side of the range, and I mean, he'd just pepper those things, and I mean, you just wouldn't change it. And I mean, the only thing he used to do that I used to really try to get him to change, he'd get kind of stuck underneath a little bit and try to hit these big hooks. So try to get him a little more on plane.
Probably now that why he's kind of gone to the fade pattern where club stays a little bit more on top and he can control it because he just has so much speed and power.
Yeah, I think it's a way better fit for him. He's I used to tell my wife watching him on TV, he needs to hit fades because he does. If he drops it under the plane too much, he'd play good for 16 holes and then have a couple big numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've had so many, I don't know what the count is, but you've had so many kids that you've put into college that you've coached. I mean, I know, and a ton of girls. So talk a little bit about, I mean, what do you think the secret is that you've done so well over the years that one has allowed you to coach so many young women into D1 golf, but also just anything you can think of as far as, what's your superpowers? Because everybody needs to be copying that.
I don't think I have any, but I don't know. Sometimes you relate, like for me, it's easier to relate to the girls because I think they're more coachable to some aspect than the guys. But the girls have, I don't know. Basically, what happened was I started teaching. I basically used to teach all boys, and then I had one girl that came along, and then another. And so the first really good girl player I had was Dinah Plyler, and she got all the way up. I called her Shorty, but she's only about 5 foot tall, and she didn't hit it really far, but she could play. And she ended up getting a full scholarship to the College of Charleston. And so she was my first really good girl player. And so what happens so Dinah got all the way up to rank second in the state, which was pretty good because, like I said, I mean, there was girls that hit it past her and stuff like that, but that girl had a lot of heart and desire, and she practiced hard, and I worked with her a bunch. And then I had some other girls, because of her success, I had other girls take lessons. So another girl, Jenny Heskett, that played at the College of Charleston. And then I started teaching 2 girls the same week within the day, maybe the same day. And one was 8 years old, and one was 9. One was Lauren Stevenson, and one was Nicole Chin.
Congrats to that, right? And she just made it on the LPGA Tour.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That is really cool.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Lauren. Yeah, I've been coaching Lauren since she's 8, and I think she's 21 now, and she is a tremendous player. But really, I started teaching a lot of girls because when I was working with Lauren was really good, and you could see at an early age that she had an elite level of competition. Like if we had any type of short game clinic or any type of competition, I mean, if she didn't win it, she was mad.
Yeah.
Like, and you could tell
competitive nature.
Yeah, she was super competitive. She wanted to beat all the boys, all the girls, everybody. She wanted to, even when she was 9 or 10, she was beating boys that were 15 and 16 that were pretty good players in short games. So we had a good time with that, and once again created that practice culture. But Lauren got really good, and with Lauren's success, a lot of girls from all over South Carolina and some from North Carolina started coming down to take lessons. So that was
kind of a word of mouth type of deal, and you just kept going. Yeah,
Lauren, and then Nicole turned out to be pretty good. She won the Blade, and she played at Wofford, and she was always really good. So, but Lauren was the superstar of the group, and a lot of girls wanted to follow what she was doing. So I ended up teaching a bunch of them. I think at one point in time I was teaching 20 of the top 28 girls in South Carolina all at one time.
That's so impressive. So what's the secret? Give us a little meat.
There's not really one. It just happened to work out that way. So
oh, come on. You're so modest. It's unbelievable.
No, it's
all right. So now you're at the Country Club of Spartanburg, right? And you're building another incredible junior program. Talk a little bit about that. You've been there for a couple of years now, right? I guess it's
yeah. So when I was in Columbia, I built a golf academy, and I had a lot of junior golfers. And these kids, a lot of them, I started teaching them. They were 4 and 5 and 7 and 8 years old, and they got into high school and into college, and so I was working with them. And then I interviewed for the job at the Country Club of Spartanburg. I didn't know it was open. I received a phone call from Chris Miller at the SCGA, and he asked if I knew anybody that might be interested in it. I said, yeah, I'd be interested in it. They have a job opening, so they had a lot of resumes sent in, and I wasn't one of them, but I did receive that call and got them. I did receive a call from the junior golf committee member, and so anyway, I took the job at the Country Club of Spartanburg after it was offered, and my number one job there is to build the junior program. So for me, it was like starting over a little bit because all the younger kids that I'd worked with have mostly all grown up. So I'd say 85% of my clientele were elite high school golfers and college golfers and some pros, and then I was kind of having to start all over and do classes with 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds and 6 to 9-year-olds. And when I first got there, we were using the U.S. Kids program, and the Country Club of Spartanburg has been it shouldn't be unusual for clubs to do what we're doing, but it seems to be that, they're willing to close the course down every third Sunday for the kids. We have kids tournaments. We've taken over the Operation 36 platform. My friends Matt Reagan and Ryan Daly have come up with probably the best junior golf platform anywhere in the world.
100%. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and we've implemented that at our country club, and it's given us it gives us some ideas and, a lot of structure to what we're doing with our junior program. Those guys are a lot smarter than I am, so, I'm just using their stuff. And we've grown it. We're up to, I think, 76 kids this semester that come to classes twice a week. So we started about, I guess before I was there, they had a couple kids that were taking lessons from the assistant professionals, and now we've, like I said, we've got about 75 that come regularly.
That's a good start.
Yeah,
I know they're excited because I watch all the videos and stuff you're putting on Facebook. It's fantastic. So I want to set this next question up by reading something that, if you get this on Facebook or in an email, as coaches, you're pretty proud. It's one of your students wrote this about you. It says, KB has become one of my best friends in the last 3 short years that I've known him. I watched what he did to grow our junior program at Country Club of Spartanburg, and I was impressed. He keeps it fun for the kids, all while helping them improve their games. It is awesome to go out to the club in the afternoon and see so many juniors out there. KB was there for me when I wanted to bounce ideas off of him. We started working together on my game this summer. He has helped me understand what I need to do with my golf swing to start playing great golf again. We have worked on many drills to improve my fundamentals. He's someone that I can always count on. He's a heck of a teacher, but an even better person and friend. Thanks for what you do to grow the game, bud. Can you tell the audience who wrote that? Yeah,
that's William McGirt.
Yeah. So how cool is that, right? I mean, that's if you're gonna have a relationship start, especially with a high class tour player, I think that's a pretty good way to do it, and I applaud you for that.
Thanks.
Talk a little bit about your work with Will.
Well, I've talked to you about it in the past when I first started working with William, and and I think it was important for William, since I wasn't in a circle and I wasn't out on the tour coaching other tour players, and I wasn't kind of in that circle. That I think it has to take a while for a tour player to earn your trust if you're not in that circle.
Right.
And anyway, so behind the scenes, I've been working with William for a while, and number one, he's probably one of the nicest guys, huge heart, and just a class guy that's a pleasure to be around. He's got great stories, and I mean he teaches me a lot as well. He's got so much good information. His short game is fantastic, and William's not the most talented guy. I mean, like Dustin Johnson and William, I mean, they're complete opposites as far as talent goes, but William, I mean, he is a smart guy. I mean, he manages his game. He knows how to work. He works really, really hard at his game, and I mean, he's super knowledgeable. He's been a successful guy. He's made over $10 million on the tour, and I mean, you got to give that guy credit. He went to Q school 8 times before he got in, and I mean, he had an ambition and a desire, and he did what he needed to do and got there. So,
I think one of the traits of a great coach is that you listen to your student, obviously, but that you learn from your student. And you mentioned that you learned so much from William. Give us a few examples of some of the information that you've learned.
Yeah, well, he's got some knowledge. I mean, he's taken a bunker lesson from Pete Cowan, and I mean, he's shared that information with me, and certain things that he works on around the greens, or certain ways he manages his game, or he preps before a tournament. Like, I mean, he's got his own deal, and I mean, so I've learned from what he does, from tournament preparation to short game to other things that he practices and prepares himself before tournaments with.
So give us an idea of what that week looks like for you now. Being, I mean, you're out there. You went to a few tournaments with him. Give us an idea of like the internal workings of a tour player, and then what you're looking for to try to get him prepared for that week.
Yeah.
Take us through from Monday to the end.
Monday for Williams is usually pretty light. It's typically a travel day, so he's either traveling on Sunday night or Monday, and Monday's usually a light day, so maybe hitting some balls and doing some short game and potentially playing 9 holes, but not more than that on Monday. Tuesday's going to be a little harder work day, so there's 1 or 2 Tuesdays I've been with him out there that we've had 8 to 10 hour days out there working at it. So he gets after it pretty good on Tuesdays.
So what kind of are you making significant changes at that point? I mean, it's obviously you're very close to tournament day, or is it more just reinforcing what you guys have worked on before, drills and such?
Yeah, most of what we've been working on is I'd say it's pretty similar to what we do most of the time. I mean, there's been a kind of a big change that I've worked with them on, but it's I'd say it's not all at one time. It's more in small sample sizes. But the change, I'd say we work on changes on Tuesdays, but it's a lot of hard work on that, and typically playing 18 holes, doing a lot of short game. But, I mean, he does a lot of range time on Tuesday, so I'd say it is, just kind of reiterating what we've been working on prior to getting there, and then just kind of plugging away and make sure it's good to go.
And what about the rest of the week? What's that look like? Is Wednesday sort of a light day or kind of?
Yeah, it depends if he's in the Pro-Am. So if he's in the Pro-Am, he'll play 9 or 18 holes depending on the Pro-Am. And then if he's not in the Pro-Am, he typically will get 9 holes in. But Wednesday's typically a lighter day. It's more short game and maybe 9 holes and trying to get some rest before the week. And it kind of gets a little funky on tournament day for him, which is kind of unique. So let's say so the first tournament I went to him with him this year was at Bay Hill. And so he said so he had a 7:30 tee time.
Wow, early.
Let's see, 7:30. So William likes to get to the golf course 3 hours before his tee time.
Oh my!
So 7:30 is at 4:30. So so I stayed with him and his family down in Orlando that night, and Wednesday night we did a little practice on Wednesday night there, and then Thursday morning woke up and we got to the golf course at 4:30 for our 7:30 tee time. So he gets there, has some breakfast, hits some putts. He goes and does a light exercise, takes a shower, then head to the range, back to the short game area, back to putting, and then he's ready to go. But he goes through his whole bag. I mean, he's going through his balls and his gloves and his tees and just kind of making sure he's the first one in the locker room that morning. And he knows all the staff there. The Bay Hill staff is like great in the locker room. Wow. They have great stories about Arnie. It's really cool. It was fun for me because it was the tradition of Bay Hill and the love I've always had for Arnold Palmer, and the stories the guys were telling were really cool.
So has there been any, being out there on tour, has it changed your thinking in any way of like how to prepare a player, or do you just kind of do what you do? Is there anything else that's like, have you learned anything, or is it just business as usual?
Yeah,
it's got to be a different scenario, right? I mean,
yeah, it's a little bit. I mean, the pros are a little bit different. I mean, all the guys, like during practice rounds, whoever we're paired up with or whatever, and then walking during the practice round, I mean, they all have a pretty good time playing together. They tell stories, and I think just kind of sitting back listening to stories is pretty unique. But
sure,
they all, they're all serious about it, and they all have a lot of, you can tell, I mean, obviously that's their career, but they have fun, but they're serious at the same time because, they're all competitive and they want to do well.
So let's transition a little bit into, thanks for sharing that, by the way. That's cool, man. That's the stuff that I like to hear. I want to know what's going on, on the tour, because I think it's interesting. Well, let's talk a little bit more about teaching, and let's help some other coaches. So what do you think, this is a new one that I've been kind of thinking about. What do you think is the most difficult part of the game to teach, and why? Or maybe the most difficult piece to teach? I mean, you can take it into full swing, or
I'd say whatever. Now I'd probably stay the mental game portion of it as much as anything. Working with elite players, I feel like, if they have an edge, that's it. And I think a lot of people, I believe, they need more help with that area than any other areas, probably as much as they can, because I think that gives them an edge if they're really good mentally versus not. I mean, I've got players that can hit the ball great, but if they get out there and they don't maybe handle themselves correctly and they have mental breakdowns or a bad attitude, that's all going to affect their game. So I think that the preparation is important. People, if they have a good their expectations and their preparation need to match up. So.
Yeah, so that's more of the coaching piece, right?
Right.
Yeah. So give us an idea of your mental game philosophy. Is there some go-to things that you tell all your players, or what do you think if we had to break it down in some bullet points? What would that look like?
Well, to me, it's always just stay positive and stay patient. We're all lucky to do what we do. If you get to play golf, and if you're playing for a living, or if you're playing in a junior tournament, you're very fortunate to be able to do what you do. So in the big picture of things, we want to kind of keep it in a kind of a good mental frame, knowing that, you could have there's so many bad things out there that you're very fortunate to play golf to start with. So we have, anyway, the more you enjoy it, and to me, the more you mentally prepare yourself, just keep your cool out there, stay positive, hit your shot and kind of deal with whatever you hit. Sometimes you hit a bad shot, just, okay, that's golf and it happens, and you just need to recover and kind of refocus and get back on the thing. I love, Morris Pickens, the 4 R's.
My next question was going to be that, what are some of the resources that you've gotten or that's helped you? Is I always like to think if we were, let's just say you were a professor of a class of young PGA professionals,
mm-hmm.
What would that curriculum look like, and then what subjects do you think would be important?
Depends on the area you're going into, but
let's just say you're trying to be the most well-rounded coach or teacher out there. What do you think are the key elements that a young coach or just a PGM student coming out of college, what do you think they need to know?
Well, just how to treat people. I think it's all about relationships and people more than anything.
So the EQ is definitely important.
Yeah, I think it's the most important. You need to learn all the IQ stuff, but the EQ stuff to me is the most important, and to be successful and to build those relationships and the way you treat people, and to have people come back to you over years and say thanks for what you've done and help them out with their game, and and just like where I'm at now at the Country Club of Spartanburg, you have to treat the members a certain way. So it goes back to the people business and the membership business and your clientele business and stuff like that. So I think it's how you deal with people is really important. No matter what part of the golf industry you're in, that's probably the most important.
So how do you learn that? Do you think is that a learned skill, or do you think it's sort of born to most guys or people? Obviously you can go deep into integrity and ethics and empathy. I think all these qualities of having what me and my staff talk about is the EQ part, the emotional intelligence is but it's hard when somebody says, well, how do you get that, right? How do you develop that?
Yeah,
Is there any books that come to mind, or anything that that come to you that say, hey, this would be a good resource, or is it just trying to be a better person?
Yeah, I think it's being a good person and doing what's right and treating people right and treating people the way you'd like to be treated. And like when you go places,
the golden rule.
You'll remember things like if you go places and people treat you right. If you go play a golf course and it starts from the bag staff all the way up to the golf professionals, and if you go take a lesson, how they treat you, and you want to make your students feel special. If I've got a 6 or 7 year old kid or a tour player, the 6 or 7 year old kid, I'm high-fiving and smile on my face, and we want to have fun. We want to get better, but we want to have a good time. We want to make the experience fun. When the kids come out in our junior program, we want them to come back, and we want them to have a fun time coming to class. So if they're not having fun and they're not enjoying the experience, and if they're not being treated right, they're not going to want to play golf. So I think, as PGA professionals, we need to grow the game and do what we can to make the experience great for people. And, all our golf professionals, we need to kind of help each other out to do that as well.
For sure. What about the IQ side? What do you think is what's important if we've got to build this class? What do you think the young coach that says, hey, I want to learn to teach, and you're going to say, well, this is the areas that you need to focus on, maybe some resources that maybe you've gone to or certifications? I mean, we can go in a lot of different directions, obviously, with that question, but
Yeah.
I think it's important for this show.
Well, just with the whole game, I think everything, no matter what shot you have, starts with the fundamentals. I mean, you kind of start with the grip and work your way up to the stance. And so keep it very fundamental and simplistic. But to me, if you have good fundamentals and you have a good setup, that's going to lead into having a good golf swing. So I'm a big impact guy. I probably teach impact more than I do anything. I mean, everybody has a little bit of different style. I don't think I have two students that look alike when they hit shots, but I think a lot of them hit the ball really solid, and they do it a lot of different ways. But big believer in fundamentals, no matter if you're putting or pitching or full swing. But to have that basic, solid, fundamental setup that when you play, and that pre-shot routine, that when you play, it comes back and repeats time and time again. And like I said, a lot of impact stuff. So, I think as a young teacher, if you can fix a slice, you're on your way to helping out, because, a lot of people that we teach, at the club level, the average golfer, they slice the ball.
Sure.
And you have to be able to fix a slice. So I think that if they can learn how to do that pretty quickly, they can kind of be off and running and teaching golf. But fixing slices, controlling ball flight one way or the other, and then you're a better player, obviously. Ball flight, shaping shots, trajectory control, flight and wedges down, all that kind of stuff for higher level players.
So how would you describe to a new player, or just, let's just say an average golfer, intermediate golfer, impact, and then what are some of the things, or maybe a drill or two that you do with that player? Like, how would you describe that to a player? Say, hey, we're going to work on impact. How important is this? Give me a little more detail of how that would look in a lesson.
It would depend on what they're doing, but
let's say you got a guy that's throwing it real early,
yeah,
and
throwing it
wide
early.
open scooper.
Yeah, I do a hammer down drill where I put a small piece of plywood or a lie board behind the ball, several inches depending on the thickness of it, and get them to be able to strike the ball first and then the turf without hitting the board or the lie board. So I do a lot of that impact stuff. I do kind of a 1-2-3 thump where I have them actually throw a ball down toward the ball, and then one-handed and then two-handed, and literally thump the golf ball, and maybe even put those balls in a divot or a sandy piece of area to where they really have to make good ball contact first. And when people can feel how much more solid it is, and they can hear that as well, I think it's really effective. That they learn fast that that's a different sound maybe, or a different feel than what they had before. And of course, the ball goes a lot further as well. So.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Who have been some of your mentors or influences in your career that you would sort of draw upon, lessons that you've learned, anything? It doesn't have to be golf, but just in life, that have sort of molded your career.
Well, in the golf world, I think Jimmy Kusler had a huge influence on me. Jimmy was always a class act down in the Irmo area, in the Columbia area. The way he did stuff and his passion for coaching and helping people out. And I like to, say I'd copy Jimmy a little bit with the coaching aspect of it. He was a man's man, a coach. He was always there to kind of push you along and help you out, and he was good. But I've had a lot of people. I took lessons from Grant Bennett. I thought Grant was probably the best teacher in the history of South Carolina that I've ever been around. He was incredible. He taught well over 100 tour players in his day. He was Charles Warren and Jonathan Byrd were kids that took lessons from Grant.
Yeah, good players.
When I moved to Columbia, I'd see people hit the ball really well, and I'm like, "Who's your coach?" And it was always Grant Bennett, and so I went and took lessons from Grant. Grant not only taught me a lot about golf, but he taught me a lot about being an instructor. Grant was probably the most influential in my teaching of anybody. And through the PGA, I've been going to the PGA National Teaching and Coaching Summits and educational programs since the late 90s. I've always thought the world of Chuck Cook and Butch Harmon and so many other teachers that were out there that just were really good teachers and had passion to teach and just they didn't care really about the money. You could tell they just loved teaching and coaching. And these guys, I mean, they've done well successfully. They've been very successful, but you can tell they just love the coaching part of it, and that part of it's just secondary.
So what do you think about the state of our teaching business right now, and how would you improve it?
Love for everybody to get along.
Yeah, a little too much bickering, right?
Yeah, I stay off the message boards. I think everybody's trying to be right or be smarter than the other guy, and I'm a really good coach, but there's people that they're way smarter at so many things, and and everybody doesn't have to prove that they know more than somebody else. I mean, I think us pros. I mean, I've been in situations where pros have almost kind of dogged you to try to take lessons from you, and I mean, I think it's ridiculous. I think all us teaching professionals need to build each other up, help each other out, share information. If we can grow the game, I mean, it would be a huge plus for the whole PGA and the teaching community.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. That's to the point for sure. I think that we're all continuous learners, and I know you do a ton of education. I appreciate you supporting all the workshops and things that I've put on. Is there anything that you're doing personally to develop a new skill and put yourself in that beginner's mindset?
Not so much. I mean, I
probably don't have the time,
yeah,
right?
I don't have a whole lot of time. I get away and do some other stuff outside of golf, but I haven't taken up a new skill lately.
Well, talk to me briefly about an old skill that I know you have, and that's bass fishing.
Yeah.
Tell me about how that started, and then we'll get into some rapid fire questions here.
That's funny.
Will be fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I grew up in Florida fishing. I didn't play golf till I was in college, so I grew up fishing. I used to live in a really good fishing environment. We had saltwater fishing was really good. We had snook and tarpon and redfish and trout were our big things back in Fort Myers that were really fun to catch. We had a little bit of offshore stuff with the deep sea fishing with grouper and snapper, but the inshore fishing, I really, really liked it. Well, when I moved to South Carolina, I lived in Charleston, and we had the big lakes there, the Santee Cooper Lakes. So I said, well, maybe it'd be a good idea. I'll go get a bass boat and I'll go fish there since I love fishing, but I'm a little bit far away from the coast because I lived in Somerville at the time. And so anyway, I took up bass fishing, and I really liked it. It was fun. It's beautiful. I love being on the water. I love being out and seeing the ospreys fly around and the big alligators down there, and all the nature that goes along with being on the boat and kind of being away. It's a break from golf.
Is that kind of your stress reliever?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do
you get to fish much nowadays, or?
Yeah, I do some.
Yeah.
We live on a small lake north of Spartanburg, and somehow I've gotten rid of all my bass boats, and
I was going to say, do you still own a boat?
Yeah.
It's a pontoon boat.
Yeah,
a little tougher to fish off of.
Yeah, I used to. Yeah, when I fished, I got into it and used to fish all around the southeast. Fished tournaments in Florida and Alabama and Georgia, and we had a 2-man partner. I had one of my best friends, Mike Ward, and we'd go fish everywhere. And it was very recreational, but very fun. And it's hard work because you're getting up, really early in the morning, and you got to keep a high level of focus all day. And it's not just recreation, but it's kind of work. And it's that competitive. I think that competitive spirit kind of drove me to doing that. It was fun, but now I just kind of fish for fun.
So what does success mean to you? How would you describe it?
Biggest thing is just, I think for me, it's just building that relationship, the student-coach relationship, and seeing people succeed, trying to help them achieve their goals. I mean, I'm not – other than that, I mean, that's the biggest thing for me. I mean, we were riding up here today, and one of the girls that I teach, Anna Morgan, won a big Peggy Kirk Bell tournament today. They actually played in the 42 degrees and rain today, but she played really well, won by 3 in 3-day tournament. And, I mean, getting a text from her and a call, and I mean, it's pretty special when, a student picks up the phone and they call you and tell you they've done something, because you really know how hard, these players that you're working with practice. And,
right.
And so like when I see people putting the effort in, and I'm able to help them achieve that goal, that's probably the coolest thing.
How has a failure or a roadblock in your life set you up for later success? Is there a story or a part in your career where you said,
well,
you look back and say, well, I messed up, but this happened because of that? I mean, I think there's a lot of those in my life. I know that, but sure, you've got to have something.
I think the biggest thing was early. I probably didn't put enough time into education, so I was always one of the guys that's in the PGA that was kind of scraping by to get his 54 hours every 3 years of education, and I would be down to the last month. And about 10 years ago, I just put an emphasis on education. Maybe it's 10 to 15 years ago. Education and reading a lot, and really now listening to podcasts. I mean, I'm trying to do something, like every day to learn something to get better so I can help my students. I feel like the more I can learn now, the better I can help people, and the more I can keep it simple for everybody. So, I mean, the biggest failure I had, I think, was just not really putting enough time into education. I was teaching all the time, but I really needed to learn more.
Yeah, I think that's a great lesson learned for sure for all of us to keep pushing the envelope and trying to get better every day. Even when you do have some success, you get comfortable, right? It's easy to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Any books that come to mind that maybe you recommend to other people, or some favorite books of yours that you've come along the way that you want to share?
I mean, I like the way you're trying to learn. Like, I think the way the brain works and the way people learn is important. Like the talent code, I thought was really good.
Yeah,
because
Daniel Coyle.
I mean, I felt like, I'm working at this old crappy driving range, and the pros there were producing a bunch of pretty good players, and you didn't have to be at the fanciest place to do stuff. And I feel like if you create that culture and create that environment, I thought that was really, really cool early on, kind of trying to learn that. So I thought that was a really good book. And I mean, there's so many books that I've read that I'm not sure, but I mean, to me, I'm doing more mental stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
Mindset Manifesto by Dr. Britt McCabe.
Dr. McCabe
was really good. I mean, I think that's helped me, but I also use it to help my students as well. I think, everything I read, I try to think about how I'm going to help somebody. So it's more, to me, mental game training or, just any motivational books that are out. So.
Are you an early riser?
No. No, I mean, 7:30 every morning, but I don't get up super early. But I usually stay up late.
You're kind of like me, I'm the same way. Do you have any morning routines that have to happen for you to feel like you have a good day ahead of you?
No, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, if I can get to work early and practice a little bit prior or get a good workout in, I mean, I think that kind of sets your whole day off on a really good step. So, if I can do something to, whether it's learning something on my way in, listening to something where it's going to, like a podcast where I'm going to learn something, or if I can get a workout in, or if I can get a practice session in prior to work, I think that really helps the whole day.
That's a good way to start. All right, so I've got a couple more closing questions, but we've got a bunch of coaches here in the room that might want to pipe in. Sean Kennedy, Robbie Fales, Alan Burton, Seth Mers. Anybody have a question for the guest of honor, KB? I know Robbie's got a question. Come up to the mic. Yeah, I got. Hold on, whoa. Whoop. Say that. All right, let's do this.
All right, so some of the things that you've said tonight, especially about providing environments for your players to really be able to grow in that practice environment that you talked about. What are some keys, or what are some kind of hacks to helping create that environment where people want to come out, whether it be juniors or your adults want to come out and practice and be around each other and really have that great culture of improvement? What are some things that you've done to foster that?
Well, to create that environment, I mean, it helps to have a group of kids or a group of, college kids or high school kids or younger kids that really want to get good. And they kind of build off that. But, to challenge them, you want to have fun. You want to challenge them. I set up all types of drills or games, and we get to practice. If you can practice and you can do task drills to where you make them complete task and kind of push them. I mean, we try to push them through skills work. And I think the whole environment thing is just, if you can get a bunch of kids and a bunch of people working together and pushing each other, it's just so powerful. Yeah. But creating that, I mean, I'm a big cheerleader and a coach. I mean, I'm always clapping and cheering everybody on, and sometimes if they need to be pushed, I'm pushing too. I mean, I might kick them in the tail and fuss at them if they need fussing at, but I'm always there for them. And I think if your student knows you have their best interest and you have their back, that they're gonna work really hard. And the kids love it when they have success, so they'll push each other, if you get a group on working together.
Okay, any questions? Sean?
Yeah, this isn't really a question. It's just more of a statement. So if you get a chance and you're listening to this, call Kevin and go watch him teach, and you will witness the culture firsthand. I mean, it's awesome. I was there for the Bobby Chapman,
right,
the tournament, and he was giving a couple lessons, and there was a group of 5 or 6 young boys that were out there kind of picking the yellow range balls up to swap them out with the white range balls. But all they wanted to do is show Coach KB what they could do with the golf ball, and it was awesome. It was an awesome thing to experience. So I mean,
thanks, man.
I don't like to say I don't. That's not a question, but yeah, I want to know how you do that, and I don't know you don't have an answer, but I still want to know how you do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just cheer for everybody and pull them along.
Man, you just way too humble. That's awesome, though. Thank you for that. Anything, AB?
No, I don't have any questions. I'm very fortunate to be Kevin's friend. I really want to say that he is the guy that sets a standard by all that we should follow. And he's humble. He's talented. He's skillful. He can do it with technology. He doesn't have to have technology. And that's something that's very admirable, certainly very impressive to watch. So highly recommend any young professionals want to learn how to teach the game of golf, go spend some time with K Britt and learn how it's done. Red Dog.
Awesome. Thanks for that. All right, Seth?
Yeah, just one little thing. Obviously, thank you, Kevin, for all that you do for us, and your ability to expand your knowledge to those around you are one of the main reasons that you're widely respected, not just in our area, but all across. One quick question: if you had a student that comes to you, and obviously you have this quite frequently, that has goals of reaching, the professional level, where do you start on their expectations and their goals and so on to get them to that level?
Yeah, I mean, you just explain to them that, if you want to be a professional, you need to practice like a professional, eat like a professional, work out, do all the things professionals do. And if you do that day in, day out over a period of months and years, I mean, you can get there. But, I mean, there's no magical answers other than if they're willing to put the work in and they have the desire and put the people in their corner that are willing to help them, they can achieve their goals. But, I mean, you have to be willing to work hard enough to get there.
So it's just instilling that work ethic and not letting them cheat, right? I mean, like you said, I think this is the coaching piece that you're so brilliant at, is when to get on them and when to hug them.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. I mean, I know my students know I'm there for them, but, I mean, sometimes you have to push them and sometimes you have to hug them. I mean, but, I mean, the thing is, if you're going to play like a professional, you have to practice like a professional and train like a professional. I mean, they practice at a really high level, and they value their time, so they use their time very wisely, but they practice very intensely during that limited time that they may have. So I think it's a very deep, concentrated practice when the successful people, and everybody successful that I've ever worked with, they've had a vision and they've known they're going to get there. There's no doubts. There's no ifs. They know what they're going to end up with, and they figure out how to make it happen, and they are willing to put the work in to make it happen.
It's really good. All right, so one last question. If you had a giant billboard and you could put whatever you want on it that's going to reach billions of people, what's it going to be and why?
Do what you need to do every day to improve yourself. If you do a little bit every day, at the end of a week, it's a lot. At the end of a month, it's a lot. At the end of a year, it's a lot. So do something every day to get better. Eat better, educate yourself better, work out, and practice. And if you do what you're supposed to do every day, you're going to get better.
I love it.
All right.
Dude, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
It's been awesome.
Tell everybody how they can reach out and say thank you. Give them your Instagram, Twitter, Facebook platforms.
You need me to look it up?
It's at Kevin Britt Golf.
Yeah, I think everybody. Okay, so I'll hook that up in the show notes. But dude, thanks so much. Anything that I haven't asked you that you would like to cover or talk about?
No, I don't think so. This has been great, man. It's such a pleasure, and hanging around you guys, it's just a treat to be here. So thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, I appreciate your friendship and all the work that you do to help your players, and I continue to learn from you every day. So thanks so much.
Thanks, bro.
What's up, everyone? Guru back here again with a couple of things before you jump off. First, big thank you to Kevin Britt for coming on the show and sharing his story and some great information that you can apply to your teaching and your life. You can reach him again at Kevin Britt Golf on the Twitter or Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at GolfGuruTV. And also check out my website at golfgurutv.net, where you can find videos, articles, and more information on my teaching and coaching. There's a ton of stuff on there that if you dig deep enough, you will find helpful. If you have a question or a comment, you can email the show at golfgurushow@gmail.com or just hit me up on the DM. It's all going down on the DM, right? This show and all episodes of the Golf Guru Show were produced by myself, Jason Sutton. Music is by Zach Mullet, aka Cutta Beats. Also, leave me an iTunes review. Let me know how I'm doing. Give me a rating. Thank you so much for the few people that have done that, taken the time. I know you guys are busy. I know it's tough once you hear an episode to have the time to reach out. You're probably in your car, you're in the gym, you're working out. So if you take a second, do a review, send me a DM, send me a text. I appreciate all the support. We've got some great guests coming down the pipe, so hang in there. They're coming. Just trying to get these guys and girls scheduled for interviews. So got some exciting things coming. I appreciate your support, and I always leave you with the infamous Jim Rohn: study, practice, teach, and then pass it on. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening.